Welcome to Eye on Business. I'm Christine Donalow from Luzerne County Community College, and my co-host is Stan Zigman from the University of Scranton. Our guest today is John Craighead from Craighead Associates. Welcome, John. Nice
Thank
to
you.
have you.
Thank you.
Could you tell us a little about yourself and your company?
Okay, very good. Well, Craighead Associates, we're located in the Poconos right now, and we're a management consulting firm, and we're specializing in change management and innovation. We have been in business now. This is our third year here, but prior to that, we were in an international consulting firm for me for 14 years, and my wife for about 5 years. And all in all, in the business market, I've been in for about 25 years.
You do a part of what your business is for leadership and leadership training?
Well, I think it's an inseparable.
It's inseparable?
Yeah, because whatever the issue is, it usually always starts with the leadership, the head of the fish kind of thing, So inevitably, it always works out that, that's an issue that needs to be addressed. So the leadership is so essential and critical to the whole movement of the organization.
And how do you assess and deal with the leader? I mean, sometimes leader could be the boss, the king, someone who's not going to take orders.
Yes.
How do you approach that? How do you work with someone like that?
Yeah. I think one of the things, it's really not a personal issue. It's like a systemic carry-on of a system that was created about 100 years ago, a management system that was created 100 years ago. A very good management system because all of our accomplishments and the things that we've gained have come out of that. But it's sort of an outdated, outmoded kind of setup. And I think you can look at certain examples. Like, for instance, there are about maybe 10 or 12 companies that are operating today that seem to have consistently a competitive advantage over everyone else. Google, Procter & Gamble, Microsoft, and so if you begin to inquire into why is it that they are successful and others aren't. I mean, is it in their DNA, or do they have some secret that other people don't have? And I would say absolutely not. In fact, I think if you were to go into most companies and you said, who's managing your company? Most of them would say, well, it's the CEO or the COO or the CFO or the CIO, that kind of thing. But I think what you would find is that who's managing the company is a system that's about 120 years old. So it's kind of like if you looked at the automobile, when this system was created, it's like when you used to start a car, you'd go outside and you take the crank and you start the car. Now you get in the car and push a button. So it's almost like if you're in the car pushing a button, you want to get out and go around and crank the car, and there's no crank. So what I mean by that is that if you look at the companies that are successful, you'll see that they're managing in a very, very different way.
So how did that relate to what we're in, the economy we're in today?
Yes.
How does that apply?
Yes, yeah.
Because the whole intent of this program is it's eye on business and what's happening in the world today, and
Yeah.
especially in Northeast PA. So,
Yeah.
I think what you do as a professional can help the viewers kind of look at their own companies
Yes.
and kind of assess what's going on.
Yes.
So this is a key point to
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah. I think that's a mistake that you can make, and I don't want to make it, and that is that you can give a prescription to somebody on how they should run their company. I think the thing that is consistently true is that companies are so similar in their operations that CEOs can leave one company and go to another within a week or so. They can run it like they've been there for 20 years. So there's like this cookie cutter pattern of how you operate. You have a CEO, then you have a president, you have a COO. You have that structure that is gone. Now, it's a structure that has been very successful, and it's been very good in getting things done. What we're beginning to see, though, is that while getting things done, what it has done is stifled innovation. And today, what's wanted and needed is innovation. as opposed to just getting things done. You know, so I think if you look at today's, like you say, today in today's business, if you have a company that's providing the customer what they need to get their job done, you have a company that's likely to be successful. If you have a company who's designed to have you take their product and do what you will with it, they're probably less successful because they're not providing the customer what they want. So I think, and this could sound like, you know, like this is all bad, and,
Right.
and that's not what I'm suggesting at all. I'm just suggesting that it has been a very successful system, but it's just the success of it is just not what it used to be. And I think the question that most companies would have is, you know, I used to do this way, and I used to always get this result. Now I'm not getting it anymore. You know, that would be the key for them to look. Why is it that we're doing the same thing we've always done, but we're not as successful as we have been?
Well, it's a changing world.
It's a changing
And it's hard
world.
for us to accept the changing world.
It's a changing world. I went back and just listed a bunch of things that have happened since the beginning of the 20th century. There are things now that we're doing that we never had before. How about just a computer alone? That wasn't even available to people. How about space travel? How about that you can get an airplane now and get to Europe in a relatively short period of time? How about if your economy is not working, the other economy is not working? It's not like, you know, we can't operate within our borders anymore. I mean, everything is, you know, like I say, you know, you sneeze in New York and the person in Delhi has to say, excuse me. You know, so it's just really an economy that's done. And I don't think any businesses can get around that. No matter where you are, I mean, like, you know, in northeastern Pennsylvania, there's just as much in it as people are in the city of New York.
I think that's one of the hard things that people have to adapt to is the fact that it is an international global world, and we both are in education, and one of the things that you find is our competitors are not the people down the street.
Yes.
It's international.
Yes.
You know, there's now the online programs that there are. I was just reading today that University of Phoenix had a 26% increase in this last year.
Yes.
And one of the reasons behind that is they're adaptable.
Yes.
You know, they're 24/7, which a lot of our institutions, we're working towards that.
Yes.
But it's a hard nut to crack.
Yes.
You know, and I think that's the same thing with industry. We haven't adapted to the changing world. We still
Yes.
look in our little box, you know.
Exactly.
And even Obama will talk about, you know, it's the global world. It's not just within our own little borders.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that's what leadership has to work with.
Yes.
That's different and
Yes.
challenging.
Yes, and I think the challenge, coming back to leadership, I don't know if you would say something. Should I just keep going? I think coming back to leadership, there is a requirement for a new kind of leadership. You know, it used to be that there was an autocratic, systematic way of operating. The boss said, you did. And what that does now is, because you have to keep adapting and providing and moving and changing and providing what's needed, if you don't create or build inside your workforce, and I know that's an area that you're very interested in, an adaptability and an innovation to be able to look out and see what's one that needed today, which may not be what's one that needed next month. But if you're still operating today like what you did 6 months ago because it worked and it's not working, then how do you adapt yourself and change so that you can now, you know, you can now serve the people who need to be served? And I think one of the pitfalls has been there are a lot of companies whose primary function is to make sure that they operate their system. And it's with little regard for what the customer needs. It's, you know, you can have all kind of catastrophic customer service issues. I mean, I could give you just legions of, you know, realms of instances where people have needs for customer service. They have things that they need. They walk away completely dissatisfied. And sometimes that's one of the biggest mistakes that management makes, because they assume because revenue is still coming in that they're actually serving the customer. In fact, what it is, the customer just doesn't know they have an alternative. So the moment anybody comes up with that alternative, they're gone, and all of a sudden you have this catastrophic end to your revenue stream, because you're not looking out. You're not looking to see what is it. You're not in communication with people. You're not finding out from them what's wanted and needed. Sometimes they don't even always know what they really want, but they know they need something, and maybe it's not well defined, but how can you work with them to satisfy that need?
And I know you said there's not really a cookie cutter answer to any business. What can the business do to start thinking in this new way, or
Yeah.
to handle the challenges that they see today? Are there any steps that they should take?
Yes.
When you first start working with the company, is there something that you do, to begin with, or
Yes.
something they can do on their own?
Yes. I think that there are two things that a company that is really, first of all, you've got to have a commitment that that you want to do something. Because sometimes, if you kind of like feel you're forced into it because you must do it, but not because you see the opportunity for creating something that's needed. So first of all, you got to have the desire to adapt your company so that the company is providing services and products that the public needs. I think there are two things how you can start, because again, you don't want, every company can't be the same, so every company's got to find out their own identity. It's kind of like teenagers. You gotta figure out who you are, and then once you get that figured out, you can be that. You start working and developing yourself to be whatever it is that you want to be. I think there are two things. I think one is trust, and the other is transparency. I think you have to put those two things in, and once they get in, then what begins to happen is there's a natural evolutionary process that begins to evolve, and you start knowing what there is to do.
Trust,
Okay.
though, is sometimes difficult to come across with people.
Oh,
I
it's
think
unbelievable.
it's a hard thing for people to really understand sometimes. And I know it sounds silly the way I said that.
Yes.
But you trust your employees to do a good job.
Yes.
And then, do they feel that you trust them?
Yes.
I know you can tell them and stuff, but
Yes.
I'm wondering how you even bridge that, in a sense, or is it just? They always say by example.
Well, I have a particular thing about trust, and we've talked about this before. I really think trust is not something that a person earns. I think trust is a declaration. I trust you because I say so. It's not like you've got to prove to me you're trustworthy. You see, and I think it's kind of like, when you begin to create an atmosphere of trust, it doesn't mean there's not dissension. In fact, I think there's really, one of the other things that happens in many businesses is they stifle dissidence. Dissidence is a very, very important part of business, because they will point out things that other people don't see. It's kind of like, hey, we're going to go off a cliff. It's a good thing to turn the car in a different direction. You just shut up and keep driving, you're off the cliff. But I think the whole thing about trust, you're absolutely right. And it's, how do you trust anybody? It's just because you say so. So I think you begin to do that, and I think it's infectious. I think once people begin to get the sense that they're being trusted and valued, they rise to the occasion. That's been my experience, is that when I've worked in situations where there were issues between salaried people and union people, and within one day we were able to break out whatever that barrier was between them and have them come together, because they began to see that the success for each is the success for all. So it's a matter of reorienting people and having, that's one thing. The other thing is to give people an at stakeness in the business. And I don't mean necessarily revenue. I think that's really over exaggerated. I think people really want, more than anything, is a place where they can go during the day and make a difference, and then go home satisfied that their day was useful. And no matter how much money you pay them, at some point, it has a diminishing effect. You can only spend so much,
Right.
do so much.
And I think, as you said, trust is important. I think one of the things that happens in an economy like now is even as you trust your employees and you trust the company will be there behind you, there's so many outside forces that are
Yes.
happening.
Yes.
That's why sometimes, even though you exude trust or you believe in trust, things happen around you that you don't have the control of, and so then people may start to not trust you as much.
Yes.
You know, and I think
Yes.
that's kind of what I'm thinking of, is how people trust and not trust people. You know, a company says, don't worry, you'll always have a job.
Yes.
And then tomorrow corporate says, you're going to downsize 20 people.
Yeah.
You know.
That was one of the good things about the old system, is that, you know, you go there and work, and you spend all your working career there, you work your way up into the company, and you retired, and, you know, and you had this, it was a paternalistic kind of relationship. The problem is, though, that if you look at the young people today who are your workforce of the future, paternalism isn't what they're looking for. In fact, one of the things is that so many of these kids grew up in a single parent home where their parents are out working and so forth. Their trust is with their peers. They more trust their peers than they do parental authority or occupational authority. So, you know, what they're looking for is the opportunity to express themselves. And my God, why not? I mean, we spend tons of money, you know, training them to think. We send them overseas. I used to interview some of these kids that would come into our consulting firm, and they sit across from you. And here's the guy that's got a 4-point average, sang in the a cappella choir, played football, was on the debating team, you know, spent 3 years in Europe in the whole process. And you're saying, you're like, well, he's got everything, except you can't tell where his heart is. You know, you don't know. You don't know whether or not, when it gets tough, that this guy's or this woman is gonna dig in and overcome whatever that adversity is, or are they just simply gonna get up and go? The other thing is that they anticipate right now that the average worker will will have a career of 7 different disparate careers. So I mean, they may start off as an attorney and wind up being, you know, 6 other things that has nothing whatsoever to do with law in the course of their career span. So it's a whole different dynamic than it is right now. So trust has a different look than it had in the past, you know, and it was mostly trust because, you know, obedience was a part of the culture, you know.
We were brought up that
That's what we were brought up that way, and it's just not that way anymore. So it's like, you know, it's like talking to your dog and insisting that he sing, you know, he's just not going to sing no matter how much you keep screaming at him,
Right.
you know.
So we're running out of time.
Okay.
So any last words that you'd like to tell the viewers? One of the things you can do is tell them your telephone number and where to contact you.
Yes.
And then any last words that you'd like to tell us, John?
Yes. His telephone number is 570-646-7761. And we're also craigettassociates.com on the internet. There's one thing I'd like to say is that I think it's very easy right now when you look around and you can get very pessimistic and very overwhelmed by the events of today. I actually am thoroughly convinced, and it's not just a Pollyannish view, but after listening and talking to a lot of people who I have a lot of respect for, that along with all of this uncertainty, there is behind this a great opportunity, I think, for us to, it's like a market correction. It's just like we just caught up with ourselves, and it's time now that we just have to kind of like really find out who we are, what we're committed to, and focus on that. I think we're going to come out of this thing. I do think 2009 is going to be brutal, but I think that you know, by 2010, that we may be in the best shape we've ever been in.
Sounds good to me.
That's good news. We'll end with the good news.
All right.
Thank you, you know, John, Craighead, for being here for Craighead Associates. Thank you very much. We enjoyed meeting you. Christine Donalow from Luzerne County Community College. Thank them all at Steamtown for hosting us and sponsoring us once again.
Great.
I'm Stan Zigmund with the University of Scranton, and this is Eye on Business.